Good day everyone, my name is Micah. Today I'll be taking absolute beginners through a coding journey on how to create a website from scratch in a step-by-step guide. And let's take a look at the website that we are going to be creating at the very beginning. And this is the website, and I want you to take a good look at the header here, because we are going to be making just one header of this website. The header of this website, that's what we are going to be making. And first of all, if you take a good look at this website, you will discover that the background, the website is having a header. Every website has an header, and this website is having a header, and this is the header here, and the header is having a black background, and it's also having a navigation items and also a logo. And I'll make this header, which is the big boss here. The header is having a width that's stretched, expand from the beginning of the string down to the very end of the string. And you can see here is the header with this black background that extends from here to here, and it's having a height that extends from this very end to this point here. It's having a logo that is having a color of white and purple, and it's having another box that carries the navigation item. So if you look very closely at this website, it has few properties. First of all, here's the header. These all places the header. This black background is what we call the header of a website. Let me name it as the bigger boss. Is the boss that contains two other smaller boss. Here is the smaller boss containing the logo, and here's another smaller boss containing another navigation items. So we are going to be making just the header of this website, as is a tutorial and a step-by-step guide for absolute beginners. So if you're not an absolute beginner, you can skip this video, but this video is just for absolute beginners. So let's get started. The very first step in making an header or a website, let's create a folder. Create a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder header. After creating this folder, the next thing I'm going to do is to let's move over to our VS Code or any text editor you're using. Move over to the file and click on open folder. Then click on desktop. Under the desktop, look for the file that we just created, the folder that we just created, and here's the folder we created. Click on it and we select it. So to display like this, this is what displays empty file here. There is no code here. So if you have gotten this empty folder here, the next thing we are going to do is to create an HTML file and a CSS file inside this folder we just opened. And inside this folder we get two icons here. One icon says new file, the other icon saying new folder. We're not creating a new folder, we are creating a new file. So click on it and create a file called header.html. We can name it whatever we want to name it. We can name it as home.html or whatever. The most important thing is that whatever we are going to name it, it's going to end with .html. So in my case, I'm naming it as header, then .html. Whatever name you're going to give it, make sure it's having an ending of HTML. So click on enter. This is our HTML folder right now. The next file we are going to create is a CSS file. Same thing, you can name it whatever we're going to name it, but the most important thing is that we are going to end it with CSS. Okay, the difference between the HTML and the CSS is that the HTML is used for writing, and the CSS is used for designing and styling. So if you take a good look at this website once again, all these tests that you are seeing here, this code culture, this home, this trend, this about, and this contact, they are all made using the HTML. While these colors you are seeing here, this background, this spacing, and this style you are seeing right here are all set using the CSS. So let's move over to our VS Code once again. And now the first thing we are going to do, let's see the website. Now we are set to designing this header. The first thing we are going to do is to create this big box, which is the header that has a black background, and inside this big box we have two other smaller boxes, which are the box containing the logo, code caution, and the box containing the navigation items that are here. So let's create the big box and these two smaller boxes. So let's move over. Before creating any other thing, we are now in the CSS file. Look at it, CSS file. You cannot write text on CSS files. We are going to make use of the HTML file to write text. So inside this HTML file, I'm going to use shift hyphen. When you type shift hyphen, here shift then hyphen, just press enter, you get this format just like this. We are going to change the title from document, which is the default title, from document to header for absolute beginners. So we have made title. After writing our title, we are going to make a link. This link, we are going to link the CSS with the HTML. The reason why we are linking the CSS to the HTML is that without linking the CSS to HTML, whatever style we are going to code here in our CSS will never be reflected in our website. If we make our text to be red, blue, whatever color we are going to give them or shape we are going to write in our CSS code, it will not reflect in our website until we link this HTML file together with the CSS file. So that's why we're always linking it. So type link and enter. Then the way to link it is that we are going to type this header.css inside our ref. So header, you can see it's already showing. Then we are forwarded link it, control save, and now we are good to go. Let's check the website. Let's check how our website is now looking. Okay, for you to check the website, move over to the file we just created, this folder we just created, enter, double click, and you can see that these two files we created here, these two files we created inside our VS Code, this HTML file and the CSS file we created inside here, automatically appears here. You can see automatically that appears here. So what we do is to double click this header, the HTML file, not the CSS file. Double click the HTML file and you can see that it will open in our browser. Now look at it, look at the title, header for absolute beginners. The title we wrote here is the same title that will appear in our website, header for beginners. Now it's an empty website, there is nothing inside of it. We want to make an header just like this. We want to make an header just like this inside this empty website. Now the next thing we are going to do is to rename this big box, which is the header, and these two smaller boxes. Now let's go and start styling. We move over to the body. When we are coding, we code inside the body. Whatever we code outside of the body will never appear in our website. So whatever we write inside our body will appear in our website. For instance, let me say this course is for absolute beginners. And now look at it. When I control save, 'Beginners'. Sorry, there's a mistake here. When I control save, 'Beginners'. And now look at it. When I control save, 'Beginners', sorry, there's a mistake here. When I control save, 'Beginners', and now look at it. When I control save, 'Beginners', and now look at it. and I move over to our website that we're creating, and I refresh. You can see that what I wrote there, what I typed there, it's appearing now inside our website. That's good. If I should write anything outside of this website, outside of this body, it will not reflect. So now let's create the bigger box. Once again, this is the website. Now let's remove this text here. It's already moved here, but it's showing there because I've not Ctrl save it. I have to Ctrl X to save it. Then there is when it now reflects it empty. So now what we are going to do now is to create the bigger box, which is the black background that contains the smaller box 1 and smaller box 2. Okay, let's move over. Now to create them, to name them, we are going to use what is called div. Enter. This is the div of the big box. We know that this big box contains two smaller boxes, which are box 1 and box 2. Now this big box, inside this big box, I'm going to type enter. Now I want to create the first smaller box, and I'm going to create another smaller box because it's two smaller boxes. So this is the big box containing two smaller boxes. So this is not enough for naming. We are going to name them differently so that we can be able to style them differently. Now we're going to name the big box. This is the big box. To name it, we are going to use the word called class. Class is used for naming. If we do not put class, there's no way we can name it. Either we use class or we use something called ID. These two things are used to name an element in a website. So we are going to use the word class, and inside this class we are going to give the bigger boss or name. We are going to call this the bigger boss. Bigger boss. This is the name of this black background. Now we can name it whatever name we choose to, but in my case I'm giving it a name called bigger boss. And this smaller boss here, I'm going to name it box 1. The other one I'm going to name it box 2. So sorry, I have to put a class first before naming it box 2. So all good. Now we have created these two boxes. We have created the bigger box. I have created this smaller box. We have given them the name box 1, box 2, and the bigger box, which is the black background that contains these two smaller boxes. We name it as bigger box. So what next? The next thing we're going to do is to write this code text, this code caution in the box 1, and this home, trend, and about contact in the box 2. So let's head over. Now we discover that this box 1 contains this box 1, Control save, contains. Now if we Control save it and check our website, let's see what is happening now. It's still going to be empty because we have not written anything there. We have not done anything there. So let's move over again. So in this box 1, I'm going to name it, I'm going to write my code editor, my code structure inside this box 1, which is this thing. This is the box 1. This is the box 1. We are going to write this in our box 1 code structure. The way to write it is that we are going to use an element called h1. You can see that inside this there's h1, there's h2, there's h3. We can just write code structure here. We can just write code structure here and structure and Control save it. And if we should move over to our website we are creating, we can see it will actually display here, but it will be difficult for we to style it like this. If we want to style it in our CSS, it will be difficult for we to style it like this because there is no way we are going to call on this code cursor. We need to place this code cursor inside or an element, so that will be easy for us to style it. And this element that we are going to place it is called the h1 element. You can either use h1, h2, h3. The difference is just the sizing. Let me show you something. If we place this code caution, inside the web h1, or we can either place it in the h2, or we can either place it in the h2, which is code caution, or we can either place it in h4, let me just say h4, h3, whatever code. I'm just trying to show you the difference. So let's Ctrl save. Let's Ctrl save and let's see what happens. You can see that when we use code 1 h1, sorry, when we use h1 element, you can see that the words here are more broader and bigger than h2 and h4. So the difference between these three, h1, h2 and h4 or h3, is that they varies in size. The h1 element will always be bigger than the h2 elements, h2 text. So in case when we need a bigger and broader text, we use h1. If you need a reduced size, we need use h2. It just depends on the size of what you want to do. So now we're using, since it's a logo, and if you check the website here, you can see that the words are big and bold. So for that reason, we are going to go for h1. So we're going to go for h1. Let's delete the rest and leave just the h1. Okay, we have gotten, and let's Ctrl save and check it out. h1. Now the next we are going to do is the other box. The other box contains these 4 tests, these 4 words. And the difference between this box and this box, in the case of this code caution, we wrote this code caution inside an h1 element. But in the case of this navigation item, we are not going to write it inside an h1 element. We are going to write it inside an anchor text. The reason we are going to write it inside an anchor text is because we want a situation whereby if we can click on this element and to take us to another page. We can click on this element and to take us on that page. So because of that, we're not going to use an h1 element, because if you use an h1 element, it will not be clickable. So we are going to use an anchor text. So this is the smaller box. Inside the smaller box, we're not going to use h1 element because we want it to be clickable. We are going to use an anchor text, which is type A and press enter. You will get something like this. This is an anchor text. So since there are 4 words there, we are going to make it 4, because there are 4 words. Make it 4 for the 4 elements, which is for this 4 elements, which is 1, home, trend, about, and contact. So we are going to write this home, trend, about, and contact in between these 2 arrows. So here is home, here is about, here is here is trend, here is trend, here is trend, here is about, and here is contact. So we have gotten these 3 elements about. Let's Ctrl save and see how it will be looking right now. Let's check out the website, and as you can see, they are all written in a straight line: home, trend, about, and caution. Here is the first box, smaller box containing the code caution, and there is the next box containing these 4 items here. Now let's check the website, and there is the website, code caution, and the other smaller box containing this, and the other smaller box containing this. So if you can see, there is no black background here, and the items are stacked on top each other here. It's different from this one here. So for you to make this adjustments and this color and this spacing, we are going to make use of the CSS. So let's move on to CSS. Now I've gotten our big box and the two smaller boxes contain the code caution and this now. So the next thing we are going to do is to make a black background, to make the color, and to space these two things from each other. This is the next thing we are going to do. And for we to do this thing, we are going to need the CSS file. We are going to do it inside the CSS. So we cannot do it in an HTML file. We are using the CSS file. So now we are going to click on the CSS file. And let's set the parameter. First of all, we're going to set